See. So we're utilizing Cityworks at the City of St. Louis to track our property stabilization process across multiple systems and groups. Here in the city, you may be familiar with St. Louis or Detroit, where we have a large mass of land and structures, and yet a declining population. So we recently had a voter-approved initiative allow for funds for the stabilization of vacant residential buildings that are owned by the city's land bank. And this is as a first step towards subsequent purchase and full rehab. And as you might imagine, a lot of these buildings are in dire need. They've been sitting probably open to the elements. So when a citizen does want to nominate a property to appear within this program, they go to our city website and they can add a valid address. And then it confirms, is this the address that you're talking about? And then once they get to past that option where they're selecting the parcel, really what it is that they want to nominate for this program, they can provide their information via the data detail objects that we've made available. So you see here, we're drawing our web integration module is drawing a lot of its configuration directly from the case template and the definitions that we've created for the data detail groups and data detail items. And it respects the a custom required data detail item. And then they can briefly describe why this building is worth investing the funds in, a little extra information about the building and the person doing the nomination. And so we've layered an extra API on top of this using Node.js as our own middleware, and we make available to the web configuration tool an object to describe better the case, how we want to display it to the public. So in this case, our address property, the attribute for this configuration object, is set to parcel, and this tells the website's module how to geocode that item. So if when we're asking for an address, in this case, we're always looking for a parcel. So it uses our parcel geocoder versus our street centerline geocoder or our composite geocoder. And then to kind of, because we're interacting with the public and we need to provide a little bit more context or a little bit better kind of idea as to, this isn't a small audience. So we provide address label and title label to better label those inputs if we're using them on this case type, and the help values do the same. In addition, when it comes to filling in title or case name, you may know it as, we often want to fill that in automatically and not present the user with that field. So our configuration object in this instance is set to address. So it'll automatically take the address string and put it into the case name so that this case just appears as 1125 Walton, for instance. And we have two additional items that we're making available to the web module, and that the web module will check our cases for within the Cityworks. And that's address deny active dupes and address deny all dupes. So with the first one, if it's set to true, it only looks for open, unclosed cases that are at the same address. And if there's an open case at the same address, it doesn't allow another one. All dupes, of course, if there's any case, no matter its status, it doesn't allow a duplicate for that same address. So you see here that, we're drawing things like prop NS property and submit to fill that in automatically and not present the user with that field. So our configuration object in this instance is set to address. So it'll automatically take the address string and put it into the case name so that this case just appears as 1125 Walton, for instance. And we have 2 additional items that we're making, and the public can track the process of those nominated properties. And so we can see here that 1125 Walton Ave is at the top of the list. We can see some details about it, which are drawn from that case instance in Cityworks. We use the kind of GIS, the map layer field integration option to then provide the neighborhood, ward, and a few other details like GIS related details of that property. And then the data details to show who nominated it and its current status. In this instance, and we'll look at the workflow in a moment, but it shows that the board result was accepted, and there are now accepting bids from construction companies for stabilization with construction pending. So in this instance, it was nominated by a local community group, and they feel that this it's a 4-unit building and that its location within a historic neighborhood and its extensive neglect along with fire damage makes it a good candidate for improving the quality of life of the surrounding neighborhood. So here's the workflow. And when a property first comes in, it's vetted for eligibility. And then there's a couple more steps here where they do an inspection and assessment just to see if it would even fit within the budget allowed, an impact analysis, and an initial cost estimate and scope. And when they get to those, when we vet a property for eligibility, it's really just making sure that it is actually owned by the land bank. And in this instance, while we're tracking the case within Cityworks PLL, we have a separate system that is a bespoke building division system that manages bid, packaging, and contracting. And so you can see here that the address gets nominated, and we move it into our building division system via a webhook and then some further integrations when we do indicate that that property is eligible. And so once we do move over to a scoping portion of the workflow, and it flows into the building division system where they start to take action on it, there's a lot of sub actions that purely happen within their system. Their project managers really just kind of making determinations and creating a scope, but they report back to Cityworks whether the project is viable with a yes/no, where they autocomplete, or the API integration completes the task on the Cityworks side, allowing us to show in the in this list here that it was accepted. And so our webhook looks something like this, where when this task item completes, we're sending a post request with the simple body over to a particular URL on our building division system. And I find that using the simple versus the custom is when we're doing the parsing and management on an external system or on a system outside of Cityworks, I find that just passing the CA task ID in this instance or the CA case ID, if I'm doing a webhook for an entire case, is more than enough, and then we can make the requests to the Cityworks API for further information. So in this instance, the event itself is when the task is completed, and we're looking at the eligibility of the property. We just want to let the building division system know, hey, be prepared for this property to perhaps go as far as scoping, but just know that we've created it. And what this allows us to do is also put any potential demolitions that the building division may be planning for that property on hold while we consider it for this program. And then you can see the same thing here. Now, instead of on complete, so when this task NS eligibility is complete, we let the building division system know, hey, we've completed determining the eligibility. You should ingest it if the eligibility is yes. Essentially, it is eligible. Whereas with these two tasks, bid and scope, when they become available in the workflow, we just let the building division system know that that task is available. And so you'll see here at the top one, the eligibility, it's been nominated, but its eligibility is actually pending. But for the bottom two, or for the bottom one, you can see that it has progressed beyond that, and it knows it's purely happening within the building division system, and they're reporting back that they're currently accepting bids from the licensed contractors that are part of the program, and that construction will be pending. Following the implementation of this very kind of a bespoke integration between two systems, we decided that we needed a better public view for tracking a case within Cityworks. And the group defined some things that we wanted to see, and so we can see the whole workflow under our process and tasks view on the city website. So we can see that the vet property for eligibility was completed and that it was approved versus denied. And then you'll see two additional steps here: initial inspection and assessment by our nonprofit arm of the city, and the impact analysis that they then do. Now, these are really kind of internal tasks that we didn't feel tell the story of this property moving through the process. But when you look at a specific case and its tasks using this case task by CA object ID, so we pass in this specific case's ID and we get back all of the tasks available, but we see here that the anonymous flag is null and the registered flag is null, and this is generally the case across the board. Now, what we really care about is what that whether that task on the case template is available to anonymous users. And so we add an extra layer in and we look at the case template to see if NS Elig is available to anonymous users. And in this case, it is, but those two tasks that followed it were not available to anonymous users. So now we can see that we're vetting the property for eligibility, and Stabilization Advisory Committee is going to approve funds, and they did. And then our Land Bank Commission approves the funds, and they did. And so we get a better, more nuanced view, or less specific view, but we're able to better tell a story from that workflow. And we also provide a supporting files section of this public view. And so you can see uploaded attachments. You can add additional attachments if you are indeed the person who submitted this application. And if an agency within the city has made attachments available for download on this case, you can grab those attachments. This is useful for doing permit issuance outside of the portal application. And so you can see down here, once we get past the construction and on to post-construction activity, we're posting it for sale online, and that can happen from our inventory, which is also soon to be handled completely as PLL case types within Cityworks. where you can search by the GIS properties that we can make available from the map layer fields integration with a case by neighborhood, by ward, and using the data details, we can allow the staff at the land bank to feature particular properties.